Welcome to the Collecting Keys Podcast, the show where you'll learn how to use real estate to create massive income, not just passive income. Real estate doesn't have to be a get-rich-slow game. Listen to the country's top real estate operators, and you'll have all the tools you need to replace your W-2 income and go beyond in under 12 months. Ready to take things to the next level? Let's jump in with our hosts, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin, for today's episode of the Collecting Keys Podcast.
All right, guys, we are here today with Sean Connolly, who is an investor and entrepreneur out of the Chicago area. So, Sean, I met down at Aaron Amuchasteguy's meetup down in Austin last fall, and he was honestly one of those entrepreneurs that I met that left me feeling like, damn, what am I doing with my life? Because this guy crushes it. And you have a handful of businesses. You have Strata Investments. You have Strata Managements. I even took a little list here. You have a direct-to-seller business. You have your Scale virtual COO business that you run. And you even threw out a couple other ones that I forgot to write down. So you got a lot going on, dude. And you are doing some very big things. So thanks for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Mike. Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate being on today. Excited to talk about real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to give people some context for where you currently are with things, what does your current business look like right now? And then let's sort of backtrack and sort of like go to how we got there.
Well, my current business right now, this is a long time going, probably on 11 years. We're tracking to do close to 50 million this year, and I work about 1 hour a day in my flipping and holding business. And that's largely been due to a heavy investment in systems, process, and really a focus on people. One of the things that's been transformative for me is getting into masterminds and getting into coaching. And, I worked with Dan Sullivan and, the who, not how thought process. And also 10x is easier than 2x. Those concepts, they sound very challenging as an entrepreneur to put in place, especially when you're the one in the daily grind doing everything. It's like, how are you going to get the time out to kind of build the systems? But it's an absolute must if you're going to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And so when you say that 50 million in your flipping business, that's wild, right? Because that's something that people feel like it's so hands-on, but you've been able to systematize that and optimize that. So like, what do you even do for your hour a day? Why don't you just systematize that at this point?
The truth is, I love real estate so much. I don't even need to be involved in that hour a day, but I'm a deal junkie. So one of the things that I would love to extend to your audience that we do at Scale Virtually is we help people build meeting cadences. And you guys know, anytime you're running a team, that team can run well or they can run terrible. And it's in large part due to the agenda that you set with them, the goals that they have, the KPIs that they're working towards. But if you don't have a way to review that consistently and keep the team together, that's where it all falls apart. And I used to think I did a really good job of it, and I didn't. It was me having ad hoc conversations with 3 different contractors and my head of construction. And there's so much stuff that got missed in between. So that 1 hour that I spend a day is usually an 8 o'clock meeting. That's like a 15-minute meeting with my entire real estate team. And it starts out with construction, and we go through basically any projects we're taking over, any projects we're selling, any moving parts that need to happen there. And then it moves into the second part of it, which is acquisitions. The acquisitions team jumps in and talks about new deals that are under contract, stuff that's closing, so that everybody's in it together. And the great thing that I've been able to see is my team has blossomed and really gelled without me. I'm not needed. Where I always thought I was so needed in every aspect of my business, I'm not anymore. And, it's sad, but it's also a great thing not to be in that role anymore. And I do have my CFO kind of is supervising those meetings right now. My goal is in 6 months, I'll be out of those as well. And what I'm really focused on now in the track is to take lead generation to a whole new level so we can go national. We're already in a couple different markets outside of Chicago. We do Chicago and like 50 suburbs around Chicago. And then we are in Indiana and Wisconsin. We're looking to potentially move into Texas is a new market. But I have a background in online marketing. And, luckily meeting people in Aaron's group and some other masterminds I've been invited to, I've gotten to see how some of the highest level lead generators in the space are doing it and really systematizing it. And that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months. And we've reaped, significant. That's where I think the growth is just going to really we're going to be able to take it to a next level with that. Because traditionally, everything that I've done, I've been on Easy Street for the last 10 years buying at the auctions where I could find really juicy deals and it was real simple. And it was basically me running through all the lists. Fast forward to today, I have 2 full-time virtual assistants go through all the foreclosures every month in Chicago. They distill like over 1,000 properties down to the top 100. I have 2 guys that drive the top 100. And then out of the top 100, they're going to come back with what our maximum allowable offer is on each property, our MAO. We send out with that, we will basically send our guys to the auction to make those bids. And we bid on maybe 35 to 50 properties and we might win, right now it's like 5 to 12 of them, just depending on the month of where we're at. That's why positioning myself to do more of the direct to seller model. We bought a direct to seller company this year. And we're heavily pushing into that. We're seeing higher margins from that. And, with auctions, especially in Chicago, you have the issue of you have to buy the property, then you have to go through the court process. Then if it is occupied, you got to work the person out. I don't have to do any of that now. So it's really been a game changer for the business. And the velocity of our capital, it's been a big transition in our business. And I can tell you I used to think, if I did a 2 flat, because the first 8 years of my career was doing 2 flats. And 4 flats and 6 flats and doing complete gut renovations, did hundreds and hundreds of those. Transitioning to, okay, now I'm going to do the simplest flip possible where I can get my velocity of capital really working for me. And I'm not giving up so much of my time to deal with plans and permits and do all that stuff. We're probably going to double our profit just through that one move. It's a decision that we made that instead of all the headaches of dealing with heavy duty construction, we're going to buy simpler deals, but we're just going to do more of them. They may not be as high margin as those deals, but we're doing them in a fraction of the time. And overall, we make more money in turn.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I got a question for you on that too, on the processing, because this is what, a lot of people in our scale community and stuff are trying to figure out, like how to processize things, how to scale. So you talked about like this really detailed process for your auction buying business. How did that translate? Like, what did you do? Because ultimately in that, you're trying to come up with an MAO and you're trying to go and buy these properties. So you got to filter through all your junk and figure out which ones you want to look at. And then, of course you don't buy all the ones you like, but you can get whatever the auction will give you. So on the home buying business, which is really relatable to a lot of our audience, like what is that system you brought over as far as allowing staff members to do all of that for you? I'm assuming they do it all for you, coming up, looking through leads, coming up with MAO, and then making the offers.
So the first thing is you have to develop your buy box of what's acceptable. And when you're buying at auction, you don't know what the strike price is going to be when the auction opens, right? So you got to put a base price of what your maximum limit is going to be. And what we do is we set that at 20% margin, right? So so we know that is set at 20% margin. So that's what our strike price is going to be based on the offer on the property. Mm-hmm. So that's how the team can systematize it without using me, because you have to build basically what your buy box is and what the margin is you're looking at per deal. But there's a lot of other calculations that go into it, right? When you're buying at auction, you don't know necessarily what's on the inside of the house, right? Mm-hmm. That's where the door knockers come in. So my door knockers actually door knock all the properties, and they're really good at getting in and seeing what we're buying before we buy it.
How does that work? This is the first time I've ever heard somebody doing this. Let me hear this.
You should see one of Sean's boots on the ground guys. He was at in Austin.
Did you bring him to Austin?
Did
he have neck tattoos?
Dude, he's a big motherfucker, dude. He was like huge, like stacked guys. Like I bet he gets into houses. Doesn't take no for an answer. Yeah, he's super nice, like very good, like sort of personal presence. But I imagine that's what you need in Chicago, though. You couldn't have a little skinny guy out doing it.
Officially, you're not. Officially, you have no reason to knock on the door. So I guess I'm asking, like, what is that? Like, why are you guys doing that? If you're okay to indulge.
Well, I don't want to give away all my secret sauce,
Okay.
but I will
Okay.
tell you this. I've got two very charming guys that when we do a door knock, it's basically we're there to figure out if there's any way that we can help them and buy the property before it goes
Okay.
to auction.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times we're able to see what's inside the property through that process.
Makes sense. Okay.
And a lot of times we're just identifying properties that we know are vacant and then flagging those in the system. We've got an entire Slack channel with a grading system. So this has been another thing that the team built themselves. So every property that I have, we have a grade of the property. I have identified whether it's occupied or vacant. We anything that we can see externally, we put a budget on right away, so I know what the external budget is going into it. And then we do an estimate of like if we can find pictures online. This is what we use the VAs for: is finding the pictures online. Gotcha. You know, if we can find them online, we got an idea, but that doesn't always work out. About several projects where the basement flooded because the house was vacant for a while, and then I had a $60,000 bill to redo the basement, right? So that does take it. But what you want to do is limit your liability in every single way possible. In the VA piece of it, I would say what I've been able to do better than most is leverage VAs in every aspect of my business to give me an edge. I knew I wanted this to be a competitive advantage of mine 10 years ago when I heard about VAs, and went through the process of figuring out how to layer in virtual assistants in each part of your business to give you maximum output. Like one thing that I do is I have the most amazing reporting of any business that's out there in terms of looking at real-time data to make decisions. That's how I've been able to scale to the level that I'm at. Most people don't look at VAs to do that. I do that in every aspect of all my businesses because that data is what gives you the insight on where you can make your moves. And the quicker you're getting it, the faster the data intelligence is there to inform your team on how to make a better decision. So that's a big part of what we do here, of what I do.
What are some of those examples in, like, let's stick with the home flipping business, like where you said you have VAs as far as on the picture, like trying to scrape the web for pictures. What else are they doing that gives you that competitive advantage?
So transaction coordination. So just imagine all the transaction, the coordinate. So I get about 185 emails a day. Out of 185 emails a day, my team, my VAs, I have two executive assistants that process that email. That's the volume of it and what I feel is appropriate. I like to be better, I like my service to be immediate and respond to people really quickly. But the cadence, we basically go in and we templated it out the last 90 days of what I would typically respond. And then the VAs are able to mimic that in their cadence with everybody. I literally have every system and process that you could think of within flipping, within acquisitions, fully documented. So if we buy in this county, fully documented process. If I'm going to work with a utility company, we actually call in, listen to the call, record it. We have the script. An example would be if we're calling in to turn on the utility for a property that we just bought, and they're going to say it's electric. They want to know the ampage, the wattage, the voltage, and the location of the meter. My VA calls the superintendent before they even call to get that information, and then they have it. So we're not wasting any time on the phone. But down to the littlest nuances, all that is baked into the way we do it. So when we do a property takeover, first thing the VA does is they set up all the insurance. Then they set up all the utilities. Then they'll set up, make sure the security is in place. And then they're going to get over to construction, and they have a checklist that they ensure the construction does. What do we need from construction? Well, we need the bid. We need to do a collection of the bid, the scope. And then if we're working with a lender, a hard money lender, my VAs are even trained to submit all that stuff over to the hard money lender. So all my loans are done by VAs. I've done with 3 or 4 different national lenders.
Perfect.
That's crazy. How, like, you're so granular on stuff. I like a lot of people, their idea of building systems, and this is us as well, it's very sort of like big picture, but you're down to like the nitty gritty details about like, this is what the conversation cadence looks like when you're calling the utility. That's like almost as, I don't know, like detail as you can get, or something like that. How do you even keep things organized? Like what system are you using for that? Or like you must have a team that just oversees maintaining that organization, because even on our end, right now, that's like the biggest issue is everything's always sort of going towards chaos and just like.
See, so that's a great thing. That's what we do at Scale Virtually. So what I realized as an entrepreneur is, number one, we're great visionaries and we take a lot of action, but we don't always take the action that is going to strategically grow our companies, right? And and the truth is, how many people are good process engineers? I'm definitely I'm a decent one, but it's out of necessity of the business. I would say it's not my natural state, but when you pair me with a good process engineer, I can think through a process all the way through down to the most minute detail. I'm a perfectionist at heart, and I think most entrepreneurs are in that way. Their business is their baby. It's a reflection of who you are as a person. You want anybody you touch to deliver that well level of service. And for me, I'm a control freak. Like, I want every aspect of my service delivery to be perfect. And when I say that, I mean it. That's actually part of our core values. Like, deliver a wow service to anybody that touches our business. Now, how can we systematically think about doing that in every aspect of what we do? That's what we deliver through Scale Virtually to our clients, because we work with so many clients on a national basis. My team's been doing it for 13 years and has built thousands of systems for the largest real estate franchises out there. We've built their SOPs. We know what best practice is. So when I work with a client and I can see what they have set up, we can give them the template that's best practice for what they're trying to do, with the right scripting, with the right emails that go out, with the right meeting cadence to have. With the right process to have to make sure all the loops that get closed out. And I have to tell you, I was lucky enough to pair up with, Six Sigma trained engineers that had history doing this and built a huge team that does it now. And we're just constantly learning best practice from all the master classes that I'm involved in and all the masterminds that I'm involved in, and also all the large clients that I get to work with. We're dealing with big, heavy-hitting private equities and some of the largest companies out there. We see the systems that they have in place to get to that level, and it's not like on the mom and pop flipper level. It's well beyond that. So that insight, it's basically every person that I talk to through Scale Virtually will let me see under the hood to what they're doing, because I have to solve problems for them, right? I'm like a business therapist in that way. Tell me what your biggest challenge is, and tell me how you got here, and I have to figure out what they are and aren't doing to solve that problem for them. So it's really, I have a natural curiosity about things, and if I'm going to do something, I always go to the deepest level on making sure I'm doing it as well as I can. That's just a methodology that we've adopted as a team. And I have to tell you, I owe the service delivery. This is one of the most incredible things. So I just had a client that I talked to yesterday, and he's like, Sean, I can't believe the service from your company. He's like, the VAs you provided me are some of the best members of my team. Everybody loves them. They're completely part of what we do as a company. Like, we invite them to our meetings. They run things for us. And the other thing that he said is, I've been in the franchise business for 30 years, is what he said. And you guys do systems and processes better than anybody I've seen. And I'm in that business. He's like, I didn't know what I needed until I met you guys with what we were trying to do. He had a property management company. He said that he was trying to take his, I think it was his maintenance department from 30,000 a month. In 18 months, we had him do 150. He said in the next 12 months, they're going to do 500. And it's due to the systems and the personnel that we put in place. He started with 2 VAs. He's hiring his 3rd. And he said he expects within 6 months, he'll have 3 more added on. The growth of his business. Now, that's what gets me excited, guys. You can see, like, from an energy level standpoint, I love helping people grow their business. My leisure reading is all business books. It's what I love to do. So that is the thing that when I get on the phone with a client and they're like, Sean, you changed my business. Not only do we change people's business, but we actually transform their life, because you guys know it. We end up in that situation where we're consumed by our business and we're doing the day-to-day grunt activity, and we can't see the big picture of how to get out of it until someone kind of takes our hand and shows us how to do that. Well, we can put the system in that'll do that. And I hear every single client that I talk to, that's the story I get to hear. how they hadn't had a vacation in 5 years, and now they went on a first vacation, and their VAs handled their email for them, and everything went smooth. And now they're having breakfast with their kids. I just had a client the other day say his wife said that we saved him from a divorce because he wasn't spending any time with his family, but once we put the systems in place, he started having more time to spend with his family, and that was the number one catalyst to him having a better quality life. So I myself personally was hospitalized 3 times with chest pains before I started putting systems in place. They got me out of that rut and got me into this new frame where I'm focused on building systems and aligning it with the right people. So that's
you're coming from a point of like of experience and having to deal with this. Let's make a point of clarification too for the listeners. So Sean, you run a $50 million real estate business. Scale Virtually is a different business. Can you give us like a 2-minute like background on like what that business actually looks like today?
Absolutely. So Scale Virtually, the team's been doing it for the last 13 years. We were just nominated by the Chicago Tribune as one of the best places to work for. So just imagine that, guys, running a virtual staffing company and getting ranked as one of the best places to work for. They said we had some of the highest marks they've ever seen. What we try to do is create a win-win-win for everybody. We want to create a win for our clients first and foremost. For the virtual assistant as well, we want to pair them with a good client, but we want to set them up for success. So what I have found in my own experience, and I'm hoping you guys can relate to this, is as an entrepreneur, when I was trying to grow, this is probably my 12th company. When I was trying to grow my first couple companies, the only thing that stopped me from growing is being able to afford the next hire. So we solved that problem because you can hire labor for 50 to 70% less than you normally could. You can hire 3 people for the price of 1. But the problem is, if you don't have the right systems in place for that person to be effective, a VA will not be effective. That's why we develop dummy-proof documentation. And systems are really what are the defining part of what we do. So some people would say Scale Virtually, that's a virtual staffing company. We're actually way more than that. We're like an outsourced COO that's going to come in and take a look at your business and transform it by putting the right procedures around each and every part of your business, the right handshakes between the departments, all the things that get lost in a lot of small businesses. We put those in place so that everybody's working on the real problems in the business and not the ones that are created by chaos because there's no structure in place.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. How was going back to the real estate side? So it's very interesting to me that you've grown as much as you have only buying from foreclosure, like from auction. Like that's something that I imagine Chicago being a huge city has made that possible. But like for us, for example, for the past 4 years, we've only been direct to seller, right? We've always been that way. We haven't even had the option to buy from auction because we kind of started right before COVID and auctions went to zero.
Yeah, we still don't even have auctions really. I mean, here and there.
Yeah. So how have your systemizations gone with like the direct to seller portion of it? The marketing is relatively easy. It's the sales cycle that's very challenging, right? And this is something that we always talk about at like our business boot camps and like in our Scale community and stuff, is that like we have the black swan like with the direct to seller sort of business where every single seller is like different, right? There's always like some sort of personal situation, some sort of financial situation. They're kind of an irrational person. Have you been able to like sort of systematize that sales process the same way? Like, what are your secrets? Because we're trying to figure that out.
Well, the secret right there is I don't have all that figured out, and I don't have enough experience in it because I've only been doing it for about 6 months. But the secret is my new secret to success is I hire the best and I have them come work for me that already have that experience. So that's what I'm doing. The 2 guys that I hired are exceptional at what they do. You've met. One of them, he's already done, before I even hired him, he had already done over 100 deals. So it's not like I was bringing on a rookie and figuring out a system. What I've been able to do with him is not only I've been able to bring the learnings that I had from other people with the daisy chain of offerings that you need to have, with the systemization of the marketing that is to follow. Part of what I got with the company was all the marketing that was to follow. But to your point, that challenge with, we just had 2 deals that we had them under contract and we thought they were going to go well. And then they came back to us and wanted to retrade a little bit, and we're holding firm. and you guys know the deal. Some of those people are going to come back and some of them aren't. In terms of systematizing that, though, one of the things that I'm building within Scale Virtually is a lead gen model that'll take you through how to generate the leads, what your marketing needs to look like, what the scripting needs to look like when you get on the phone with them, and then all the follow-up. Like if you need the second part of the business would be like your transaction coordinator and all the subsequent pieces to the business. That's something else that we're developing right now. And the cool thing is within 6 months, we have 2 organic sites. We have 2 paid search sites. We're doing hundreds. I think we're doing close to 300 leads a month right now. And some of these sites aren't even off the ground. The organic sites are going to take a little bit longer. But I've seen really high returns on what we're doing. And where we're a little specialized, and I think we make a little more money than the average guy is, I've seen everybody making 2 to 3x on the leads that they pay for. I'm trying to get really granular on how I'm generating those leads at the most efficient price point. And then I'm trying to get really granular on our dispo of those. So that I'm maximizing the profit. So what I mean by that is like, is it right for wholesale? Is it right for takedown? A lot of times I'll give you one of the challenges that we had when we started in my market, we're used to making $50,000 a deal. So when we were getting leads in and they were only worth 7 to 10, we were like, should we even waste our time on those? Well, you actually need those leads to pay for the marketing. So I had to reteach my team how to think about that because they weren't thinking, about that. The other thing is if you're buying from PPL providers, it's making sure you have a good scrub process in place. Mm-hmm. That was a good learning lesson for us in our first 30 days as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So all your lead generation's online then with the direct to seller stuff.
Yep. And I will tell you this, margin wise, it's way better. The reason for that is I have great negotiators. So that's a key part of it. But I'm actually, as part of my business through Scale Virtually, I'm working with a number of other coaches. And they're guiding me on how to improve my sales process overall. Because I want to build the best one in the business so that we can, if we choose to go national with it, we can join it, we can go into a new market and establish the right processes and procedures, not only from the marketing strategy, but also from the sales strategy, and then build out the construction teams to do the dispos. I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but no one is screaming that Chicago is going to be the mecca of real estate in the next 10 to 15 years. It's actually usually quite the opposite. We had a great year this year, but I'm trying to find those markets that everyone's chasing, like Arizona, Texas, Tennessee, the Carolinas. Florida. Those would be the ones that we choose to move into next. But I feel like the market needs to soften a little bit on pricing before it really makes sense. And to your point, Chicago is such a huge market. Like there is a lot of auction properties here, but the auction properties, and this is perfect that we've pivoted to doing the direct to seller model because the auction property margin is pretty much gone. Like there's
too many players.
I don't know what's going on. It's been terrible in the last 6 months. I used to close like 2 out of 10 deals. Now I'm closing 1 out of 25. The numbers are just and the margins are way lower. They're just not the same as they used to be. I feel like there's a lot of newbies getting into the market that are buying things that don't really know what they're doing. That can't really put a finger on what's going on.
We're seeing that a lot, especially because people like have an aversion to the direct to seller stuff because it is generally expensive to run, or at least it feels that way, especially when you're new. Do you know what your typical cost per deal is with your online stuff?
The typical cost per deal, I think right now we're probably between the $3,000 to $5,000 range, and that's across different marketing strategies right now. I haven't dialed that in to the level that I need to. The paid search stuff that I just started doing, we were using display as well. We're cutting that out. There's certain optimizations that we're making that I'm sure are going to cut those costs down significantly.
Nice. That's industry standard. Like everyone that we have on this show that we know is a legit operator, they kind of fall in that 3,000 to 5,000 range. Usually the higher end if it's like a more expensive market with larger margins, and then on the lower end if it's somewhere where houses are like 80K, right? And they're just turning shit tons of them. So that makes sense. And then so like it's just fascinating to me how you're talking about these different websites with like the online lead gen. Like I know you come from that background, but you do that at a level that I've never heard before. Usually people, they kind of get like these basic websites with like singular forms. They run, PPC ads and Facebook ads, and then they claim to have these results. And that's like what we've tried. We've talked to people that have done that, and I've always been a skeptic. But so I guess like just to dive into that a little bit, because that is a unique thing that you're doing. You say you have these free sites versus like these paid sites. Like, what does that even mean?
So by the way, I have a lot of expertise in this space. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars developing organic websites in my previous career. And I was in the most competitive verticals that exist. So I was in for-profit education, mortgage, and insurance. Those are the three biggest spenders. So you needed to be at the top of your game if you were going to compete in those spaces. Mm-hmm. And what I learned throughout my career there is the page that they land on, the way that you optimize, the way that you do the data collection, every piece matters. The time in which to call a lead. The call centers that we would sell leads to would be calling, they'd have 1,000 people in a call center and they'd hit the lead 5 times within 10 seconds of it hitting their database. Wow. When I had to decide who to send a lead to, we had 100 variables that we would calculate within a nanosecond to decide what schools we were going to present that the person would choose from. So I'm just giving you the idea of the level of sophistication. So when I saw what was going on in this space, I started salivating. Because I saw how poorly the websites were built, how bad the marketing was, how bad the follow-up piece was. And whenever I get into a business, I call on all my top 20 competitors. I build spreadsheets out on what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. That's how I'm able to gain best practice on what my competition's doing. That's what I've done. So I've actually figured out what best practice is, and now that's how I'm building the websites, and I'm building and we're building the cadences through how we're dealing with things. So
yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, this has always been a big thing I've laughed at with real estate investors is there's like such a crazy gap between like real estate investors or real estate people in general and like their understanding of fundamental technology that there's so many things that have never improved. I mean, even look at an MLS in like a basic market, right? The MLS is like the worst software that you've ever used, right? And then on top of that, you always have all these different tech platforms that come and are sold to real estate investors that are the worst software that you've ever seen, but people eat them up because they have stupid buzzwords, like AI. Or it's on the blockchain, or it's tokenized, or whatever. And it like the product for what they're pitching doesn't even make sense. But the real estate investors are just like all over it because they don't understand basic technology, right?
Not tech savvy.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you pointed that out because even in my space, there's companies that have AI at the end of their name. And then I go up to them, I'm like, so what do you guys do with AI? And they do nothing with AI. They put it in their name to get the attention of people to talk to them. Like, yeah, we're working on it. Everybody's working on it. There's nothing really functional that they do at all with it. And it's just it's a snaky marketing technique.
It is. It's trash. And real estate investors don't understand the difference between like AI and like a software algorithm that is just doing something that's systematically generated, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I will tell you, we actually do use a lot of AI in what we're doing. So from my executive team went over to the AI conferences to figure out what we could be doing for our clients, and to the way we build our process, to the way we do a lot of different things, to the way we do our marketing. There's a lot of iteration that we're leveraging, AI to do to really help the clients that we work with. So I'm not going to say we're an AI company. We do leverage it though.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess to bring all this sort of full circle to the systemization stuff that you do with Scale Virtually, what do you think are like the most important things that people should look to, I would say, like optimize or outsource, or like from your perspective when they're starting to grow? So like the person that's trying to go from 1 deals a month to 5 deals a month is very different from the one who's trying to go from 15 to 50. Right? Do you think the fundamental needs are the same, or are there different things that those people should focus on?
Great question, Mike. So the first thing that anybody should do is hire an executive assistant. Every coaching program I've been in, and I've been in a lot of them, the first thing that we do is we document all the things that we're working on, and what's taking up our time and what we could possibly delegate. Because if you can't get the think time back to strategize on building a bigger vision for your company, it's never going to happen. And you're also caught in the weeds of doing work that you can get somebody to do for $10 an hour when you're trying to make $500 to $1,000 an hour. That's not going to happen if you're doing the $10 an hour work. And I will tell you, personally, I'm a control freak when it comes to that perfectionism. You got to let that go. So the way that you let that go is you build the system that would mimic the way you would do it, and you teach someone that exact operational procedure on how you would do it, and you work with them every day. And if once you do that and you create the second you, now you've got a lot of power, because now you've got time back to start building a bigger business, okay, and start thinking about a bigger vision. And once you execute that 1 or 2 times, it becomes much easier to do that through different positions in your company. You'll start seeing how, okay, this is what I could do here. This is what I could do here. So an example would be, when I started property management, first it was with a PM assistant, but then the company got big enough where I needed a PM assistant. I needed a leasing assistant, right? So then you deviate the roles and they specialize, but then they back each other up as well in case one is out. So I would say hire an executive assistant is number one. But in order to set them up with the success that you want for your company, take the time. And I know it's not easy. And if you're not good at it, give us a call here at Scale Virtually. Take the time to build out the way you want it done. If you do that, that's literally 95% of the battle.
Yep. That's incredible advice. Mike and I started out this year too. We actually hired a business coach at the beginning of the year to help and to help us build out this concept of what a company looks like. We didn't know what we were getting into as far as like building systems, but I would say most of 2023 that's what we were doing, was trying to build out systems. I don't think we're great at it yet, but from where we were, which was just like us doing everything random, not delegating properly, not managing it, not writing down a process, like to now, I think we've gone a long way, but I can still feel like we have a ton of growth. Like there's so much to gain in this area of business.
Yeah. Well, the big thing that we did, Dan, is we hired someone to do the actual like labor part of that, which is the hard bit.
The documentation part.
The documentation, which helps. And now the challenge is getting people to follow it and not just like stray from the path all the time, which is the management challenge, which is completely different.
So you hit on a very good point. That is the feedback that I get from a lot of people. We have a secret sauce that makes that happen. Okay. And, having operational procedure, I'll give you a tidbit. Well, if you design your KPIs and your performance around that, and it's built into meeting cadences and people have to talk about it, that's how you can get that piece done. That's why, for us, whoever's not good or doesn't know the system they need to create, let's be honest. If you've never created the system and it's something new to you, how do you think you're going to create a good system? Why wouldn't you go to the person that's already built something that's close to perfect, that's working at a very high level? That's what you should be seeking out to build. That's something we can help you, we can help you build. But you guys nailed it. Having operational procedure without people leveraging it, you have to make sure that people are accountable to
absolutely. Yeah, and I think a tough gap for people, and it has been for us, is you hammer out that operational procedure, but then writing out the KPIs that feed that. Because sometimes, anybody can make KPIs, but if you're not measuring the right shit, you're not gonna get the right results.
Here's the other thing too. I've gone down the road of doing KPIs down to the most minute level. Keep it high, keep it 3 to 5, per position. 3 to 5 is really all the human mind can focus on. If you're doing more than that, you should be probably delegating it to another person, because you're just setting that person up for failure. How many times do we get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that we have going on? We're trying to take it on all at once, and really nothing's getting done, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Just to give people something actionable on that. Do you have an example of like some good KPIs you said if you're trying to make it just 3 to 5 for, say, like a sales manager, like an acquisition manager on your team?
Yeah, well, the sales manager should be looking at his cost per lead. He should be looking at how many leads are going to each rep per day. He should be looking at their contact rate. He should be looking at their close rate. Those would be the ones that I would look at. And I would also, the thing that, that I'm interested in learning more about is like, who's a really good negotiator and who's not. Like, so how much margin are they able to build into each deal? That's how I would look at those KPIs. But I can tell you, and me trying to model out how, because we're trying to go to 10 people by the end of the year on the acquisition side. Our goal is to be at 6 by the middle of the year. And I'm thinking I've already calibrated 100 leads per person. And if they're working 100 leads and they can get a hold of 33% of those and they can get to closing 25 of those, now we're in a really good situation. Right. And that's how I'm going to model what we're going to build moving forward.
Sure. Yeah. And then I guess the sales guys as a whole, like the actual closers, are you looking at, I mean, obviously their number of deals signed is a big thing, right? But there are a lot of variables outside of that are kind of outside their control. Like technically that person can call 500 people and none of them will answer the phone, especially when you're going direct to seller. Those are the kind of nature of the people that we're dealing with. So what metrics you look at there?
I want to give two variables that I think are just really, really important. Number one is your speed to call. You could set them up for failure right away if they're not calling immediately, and they should be calling from, at least we call 3 times and we get it right away out of the gate. Boom, boom, boom. We hit it 3 times. The next thing that I would focus on is the follow up. That's where majority of all businesses I deal with fail, is they do not have a follow-up process built up. And even if they have one, it's not good. There's no way to check if it's being followed. These automations that are in place, that's great, but how many times are you calling that person? So the shift that we've made is we call for the first 7 days, then that transitions over to a VA to call. Like if we don't make it happen in 7 days, it's going to go to a VA.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such an underrated comment right there. So this is something that we preach a lot as well, because our typical practice, we need to get the guys to follow it every day. But what their expectation is that they call them basically twice a day for the first 7 to 10 business days, right? And then after that, they go to the VA, they go to our cold follow-up team. But so many new people we see come into this, and they're like, I called them twice, they don't answer. What drip campaigns are you guys putting people on that are going to get them to respond? It's like nothing.
You got to call.
Not going to respond to your stupid
calling them
campaign.
Once a week for 2 weeks is not going to get anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the other thing that I would look out for is if your numbers flag for spam. We've had that happen too. So anything you can do around that. Same thing with your email. These are things that people underestimate are how important they really are to the successful conversion. When you're in lead generation, this is what I've learned. Every percentage increase that you can get, you need to be fighting for, because that's going to lower your marketing costs. That's going to make you more competitive. And if you're not doing that and your competition is, that's why you're going to be out of business if you don't keep innovating and getting better that way.
Absolutely. Well, especially with sophisticated operators like yourself coming into this space. Historically, even when Mike and I started, there wasn't a ton of sophisticated operators in off-market real estate space, and now people are moving in, and we've had to up our game immensely just to stay operational. And people that aren't doing that, you're right, they're not going to be around.
Yeah, it's rapidly changing, and it's I think that for so long, a lot of people got sophisticated on the flipping and renovating side because that was very tangible. You can hire a crew, you can manage a construction project, but as you're saying, as the auctions are getting tighter and tighter, the reason that they're getting tighter is because more people have figured out the renovation real estate side of it, how to systematize it. But the lead generation and the closing side is still kind of, it's definitely getting more competitive, but it's much harder to build out. It's much harder to theoretically understand. But as that starts to get tighter and more competitive as well, it's going to continue to get more challenging. So it's super important to be up to speed with all those things.
I think you make a really good point there, Mike. I mean, having been in a lot of different businesses, this isn't easy. This is extremely difficult to be a great operator from a construction standpoint, to also being a great operator from a sales and negotiating standpoint, and then a lead gen standpoint. That you got to be very multifaceted to be competitive in the space and be extracting the most amount of margin out of these deals. And it's going to take a while to cultivate those skills. We've been doing this for 11 years and we're adding different components all the time. It's not easy. It's a long road.
I'm glad you say that, because Mike and I have said that to ourselves for a long time. This is a tough business to be good at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is, I mean, if you look at how quickly most people go in and out of this business because it is challenging. Like Dan and I, we've been full time on this for over 4 years. We're veterans at this point, honestly. Like so few people stick around for more than like 2 years, even let alone 4. And then we guys like you have been around for over a decade. Like you're like the elders in the industry at this point, man. You're like the wise man on the hill. Everyone's like, wow, you know. So, well, very, very cool, Sean. I really, really appreciate all the detailed discussion. We're coming up on time here, so we're going to dive into our end of show questions. So we have the same 3 questions that we ask everybody that comes on the show. The first one, which is the crowd favorite, is what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be a big win. It can be a big loss. Only rule is you're not allowed to talk about finding a corpse in a property because we've had that a couple of times and it's just never like that great of a story. It's just kind of depressing.
And I'm sure you found some.
Yeah, I'm sure it happens. It's part of the game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me think about this one. I think there's, I have the bad stories, that's for sure. So anybody who doesn't, I have several. I'll give you one of those. So, bought an apartment building and took it over, and then found out my security guard. Kind of a funny story. My security guard sees the light on in the second floor, goes in there. 2 people are getting it on, and he's in my apartment with 2 people that are getting it on. He's like, "What's going on here?" And they're like, "We're renting this apartment. What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I work for the owner. You guys are not supposed to be here." And they're like, "Yeah, well, the landlord, Mr. Johnson, who's the guy who hadn't paid me anything, who lived on the first floor, had rented out my apartment on the second floor and basically allowed them to stay there." So I'm sure you guys, well, that's actually happened. And by the way, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff being in Chicago. I will tell you, this is just from a modeling standpoint, a great story. I got a call about a deal that was a 25 unit brand new construction deal built in 2020, and it was going into bankruptcy. And there's a fight between them. The parents bought the son's note on the property. There's a family squabble and foreclosed on their own son.
Oh, dang.
Nice.
And the deal's worth about 6.5 to 7 million. And
Wow.
we're looking to put it under contract at 5.6, and it's due to this strange thing.
So the kid had a note from somebody else, and the parents bought it, and now are foreclosing.
The family's like a local powerhouse. They have a lot of big commercial property, and they went in and they knew the lender, and they bought the note, and they foreclosed on them. So they're doing everything they can do to disrupt. So that's the first time I've ever heard of anything like that happening. But we're hopefully gonna benefit from it.
Nice. That's like some like big boy like pushing people around there.
Yeah,
right?
dude.
It's like going to find anything I can to just make your life hell with that.
Definitely. I'm curious to know what the son did that made him that mad.
Something to piss them off enough to spend $5 million or $4, however much the note was for to get back at him.
I don't think money was an issue with what they were trying to do either. Like it was just to be vindictive.
That's crazy. Or, there probably is some like roundabout way that they're approaching it or something where it's going to be actually beneficial for them to do it, right? Like everyone on all sides, whether it's going to report a loss or like it's going to allow them to reduce some of the taxes or something like that. I always assume that when there's families that are doing funny things, it allows them to come out ahead some way. Like there's like a big billionaire sort of real estate family here in Spokane, and one of the things that they'll do is basically own the land and like lease the property that's on it like separately to the land, and then that way when
they'll lease the land to correct what you said, they'll lease the land but build like $100 million apartment building on it.
Exactly. And then when the guy died, which was very recently, they basically gave up the land and the property that was on there, just like sort of now was a fixture. Right. And so they inherited the land value, the sons did, but not necessarily the property value, but they got the property because it was a fixture on the land now.
Wow.
Right. So they basically didn't have to pay any taxes on this $100 million property because there was no cost basis. It was like technically leased, but when he died, it became a fixture. So like there's like a whole, like those are the kind of things that those multi-$100 million families do to
Yeah.
screw up the system.
It's like you hear about air rights and what they do around that too. That's a ton areas.
Gets crazy with that.
Yeah.
I like to think in your deal, Sean, the kid just didn't show up to Christmas, or he showed up to Christmas with a stripper and mom is pissed.
Yeah, right. So awesome. All right. Second question. What is the number one tip you would give to a small time real estate investor looking to take their business to the next level?
The first thing that I would do if I was getting in the game is you want to find the best person in the space at doing it, and then go and learn from that person, whoever it is. Offer them your services for free for 6 months or whatever it is to figure out a way to work within their business. I've actually had people join my team that way who like met me at different events and said, I'll work for you for free. I just want to learn from you. And they turned out to be some of the best people we have on our team. Awesome. That is the number one recommendation that I would have. The other would be as soon as you can get that executive assistant, do it. But the thing is, a mentor, the amount of learning that you will gain within 6 months to a year of just seeing how they conduct themselves. What people discount is they look at real estate as like just doing a transaction. What I'm always trying to do is learn a model. I'm not trying to do a transaction. I'm trying to learn how to build a business that's going to endure, and it's got all the working pieces in it that are working right, that's going to enable it to scale. That's what you'll learn from a really good mentor.
Great advice right there.
Yeah, underrated thing. And it's funny, people will spend $200,000 to go to school to, hopefully learn something, but they won't spend, $50,000 to hire a mentor that is actually doing what they want to do.
Yeah. And
it's always a funny parallel.
I definitely want to commend you guys for coming up with the Scale community and what you guys are doing there. Like, that's the other thing that I would highly recommend. Join a community like Mike and Dan's, where it's the Scale Up community, where you can learn from other industry veterans for how you can really scale your business. Because the greatest learning that I can tell you that I've had, and I have a lot of experience, is just sitting in those rooms and seeing other ways to do things and having people get up there and tell you some of the big mistakes that they made and some of the big wins that they made. There's just so much learning that happens. So communities and education like what Mike and Dan provide are instrumental. And I've been through a ton of it, and that is what I credit a large part of my success to.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that, Sean. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Last question. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
Absolutely. If you need to find me, you can go to scalevirtually.com. And that's my calendar there. My email address is Sean, SEAN, @scalevirtually.com. That's SCALEVIRTUALLY. And guys, thank you so much for having me on today. It's been a blast. Love talking real estate. Happy to do it anytime.
Yeah, likewise. Well, Sean, really appreciate it, man. You dropped some incredible knowledge on this episode. Thanks so much. And you guys definitely go and check out scalevirtually.com. Send Sean an email. In case you can't tell, he kind of knows what he's doing.
Just a little bit.
He's probably one of the more impressive operators, entrepreneurs we've had on this show. So don't be shy. Reach out to him. That's why people come on these shows, because they want you to engage. So go out there and see what he has going on. So awesome. Well, Sean, thanks again for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate it. And everybody, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.